Mrs. P from Bates Elementary, your grade 3 to 5 STEM specialist. I'm here with my daughter.
Amora.
And today we're reading
Older Than the Stars by Karen C. Fox, illustrated by Nancy Davis.
I'm going to start us off. You are older than the dinosaurs, older than the earth, older than the sun and all the planets. You are older than the stars. You are as old as the universe itself.
This is the bang when the world began.
Billions of years ago, the universe popped into existence. It was smaller than a speck of dust, but so heavy no one could have picked it up. Suddenly, bang! The tiny universe swelled up like the fastest growing bubble ever. It grew millions of times bigger in the blink of an eye.
These are the bits that were born in the bang when the world began.
The universe grew and grew. As it grew, tiny bits called protons, neutrons, and electrons formed. The bits whizzed here and there, back and forth, around and around, like a bunch of bees.
These are the blocks that formed from the bits that were born in the bang when the world began.
The bits zagged this way and zagged that way, and sometimes they bumped into each other. When this happened, they stuck together and formed something called atoms. Almost everything in the world is made of atoms. They are the building blocks of the universe. The first atoms were helium and hydrogen, two very light gases.
This is the gas in a giant puff that spun from the blocks that formed from the bits that were born in the bang when the world began.
Soon, the universe was a jumble of helium and hydrogen atoms. Over millions of years, gravity pulled the atoms together until they grew into enormous clouds that were the bite size of galaxies or even bigger.
This is the star of the red-hot stuff that burst from the gas in a giant puff that spun from the blocks that formed from the bits that were born in the bang when the world began.
Inside each giant cloud, gravity pulled the atoms together. It got more and more crowded. When two atoms crashed into each other, they melted together or fused in a burst of light and heat. The cloud became a blazing star.
These are the atoms so strong and tough that formed in the star of red-hot stuff that burst from the gas in a giant puff that spun from the blocks that formed from the bits that were born in the bang when the world began.
In the heart of the star, the atoms kept crowding into each other. Every time two smaller atoms fused together, they formed a bigger atom. Helium and hydrogen melted together to form medium-sized atoms like oxygen and carbon.
This is the blast intense enough that burst from the gas in a giant puff to hurl the atoms so strong and tough that spun from the blocks that formed from the bits that formed in the star of red-hot stuff that were born in the bang when the world began.
Each star shone brightly for billions of years, but stars don't live forever. Whenever a star died, it exploded in a giant fireball called a supernova. The searing heat of the supernova forced some of the star's atoms to melt together into new metals like iron, copper, and gold. The explosion sent all the atoms, big and small, hurtling through the universe in all directions.
This is the dust so old and new, thrown from the blast intense enough to hurl the atoms so strong and tough that formed in the star of red-hot stuff that burst from the gas in a giant puff that spun from the blocks that formed from the bits that were born in the bang when the world began.
The scattered atoms collected into new clouds of gas, which formed new stars. Every time a new star was born, it kept right on making atoms. Every time a new star grew old and died, it exploded and flung its atoms into space.
This is the sun, our daily view, that was born from the dust so old and new, thrown from the blast intense enough to hurl the atoms so strong and tough that formed in the star of red-hot stuff that burst from the gas in a giant puff that spun from the blocks that formed from the bits that were born in the bang when the world began.
5 billion years ago, right where our solar system is today, a cloud of atoms formed. As the cloud spun around and around, it flattened out like a giant plate. At the center of the cloud, atoms fused together, creating light and heat. The center grew hotter and hotter until it turned into a star, and that star is our sun. The rest of the stuff in the spinning cloud began to stick together in dusty clumps. Each clump grew bigger and bigger until it turned into a planet.
This is the planet green and blue that circles the sun, our daily view, that was born from the dust so old and new, thrown from the blast intense enough to hurl the atoms so strong and tough that formed in the star of red-hot stuff that burst from the gas and a giant puff that spun from the blocks that formed from the bits that were born in the bang when the world began.
The Earth formed 4.5 billion years ago out of all sorts of atoms made by the stars. There was oxygen, hydrogen, lead, gold, and more. At first, the young Earth was a boiling hot soup of all these ingredients, but as the soup cooled, it separated into land and oceans. In time, some of the atoms in the ocean joined together to form tiny living creatures. At first, these creatures were so simple, they didn't think or even swim. They just floated in the water. But over time, they evolved, getting bigger and more complex. Life on Earth had began.
These are the plants and animals that grow on the planet green and blue that circles the sun, our daily view that was born from the dust, so old and new, thrown from the blast, intense enough to hurl the atoms so strong and tough, that formed in the star of red-hot stuff that burst from the gas in a giant puff that spun from the blocks that formed from the bits that were born in the bang when the world began.
Over billions of years, the first small life forms evolved into countless types of plants and animals. The living things depended on the atoms around them. Plants needed atoms in the water, air, and soil. Animals received oxygen from the air and other atoms like iron from their food. When a new animal was born, it was made from all those same atoms. And when it died, its atoms were released back into the ground.
These are the people just like you who live with the plants and animals too that grew on the planet green and blue that circles the sun, our daily view that was born from the dust so old and new, thrown from the blast intense enough to hurl the atoms so strong and tough that formed in the star of red-hot stuff that burst from the gas in a giant puff that spun from the blocks that formed from the bits that were born in the bang when the world began.
About 600,000 years ago, humans appeared. They absorbed atoms whenever they breathed, drank, or ate. Those humans had children, their children had children. You are one of those children, descended from the first humans, all made from the same atoms that the earth was. The iron in your blood may have once been part of a molten lava from a volcano. The carbon in your fingernails may have been part of a tree leaf. And the oxygen in your lungs was probably once breathed by dinosaurs.
You are older than the earth, older than the sun and the planets, older than the stars. You are as old as the universe itself.
But before any of these atoms helped create the earth, they formed in stars long ago and far away. You are made from atoms that were made in stars, that were made from tiny particles that were created when the universe began. I hope you enjoyed our story and learned some science today. Have a good night.